Let's talk about our 53-man roster prediction. I'm going to give you guys numbers on every single roster spot. It does add up to 53, I promise. You guys can feel free to double check me. But I do have a 53-man roster here. I will give you guys who I believe will make the team, and in turn, who is being cut from those from that list. If you guys do have any follow-up questions, want more information on why I selected who I selected, feel free to give a comment. I will be checking those and responding. I will be a little bit better at that. I know I'm not as, sometimes I'm not the best at responding to every comment. I do see them, but sometimes when I'm at work and stuff like that. But I will make it a point to have that conversation with you guys. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about the quarterback position here. We'll start with Matthew Stafford and John Wolford making the team, with just the Rams keeping 2 quarterbacks. And that does leave Bryce Perkins as the cut. I know that this won't be necessarily a popular selection, but I do think it is the correct solution. I think it is something that will happen, is that Stafford and Wolford make the team and Perkins does not. At running back, I have the Rams keeping 4 with Darrell Henderson, Xavier Jones, Jake Funk, and now Sony Michel. I did originally have the Rams keeping Otis Anderson Jr. after the Raymond Calais injury, but now I do have him as a cut. But I do think that the Rams will maintain the 4 running backs. They do like Xavier Jones and Jake Funk. No reason to get rid of Darrell Henderson. And, of course, just bringing in Sony Michel. No reason to move him now. I have the Rams keeping 3 tight ends. That is Tyler Higbee, Kendall Blanton, and Jacob Harris. That does leave tight end Bryson Hopkins to be cut. There was actually one play that really kind of solidified this, because I was already leaning towards putting Hopkins on my cut list. He was like already kind of penciled in there. There was one special teams play against the Raiders that was maybe the worst effort play that I've seen from any Ram this preseason, and that was Bryson Hopkins on, I want to say it was a kickoff, maybe it was a punt. But either way, he was in kick coverage. Should have made the tackle, but had 0 effort level on it. So that's why I kind of put him in there. That will pop up on tape. If I caught it just live, then I know that it's going to pop up on tape. And from the comments we've heard from Sean McVay about Kendall Blanton, I do think that he does make this team. So Higbee, Blanton, and Harris as your tight ends. I have the Rams keeping just 6 wide receivers, as opposed to the 7 that they did keep last year. That would be Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, and Tristan Jackson is my selection for that final spot there. That does leave the cuts as Landon Akers, Jeremiah Hadel, J.J. Koski, and Ben Skoranek. Skoranek is in a situation with his injury where he could be somebody who clears and then gets stashed on the practice squad or something like that, but the other guys, Akers has done well in preseason, Hadel's done well in preseason, Koski did really well against the Raiders. Is it enough to make the roster? I don't believe so. Tristan Jackson, of course, he was the one that scored the Rams' only touchdown in the first preseason game against the Chargers. I do think that he does bring a different skill set similar to Van Jefferson that I do think is important to this team. Not necessarily the other guys. They don't really stick out to me as somebody who could be like an actual contributor if somebody were to go down. If Van Jefferson went down, I like Tristan Jackson's ability to kind of take over that role. On the offensive line, I have the Rams keeping 9. That would be Andrew Whitworth, David Edwards, Brian Allen, Austin Corbett, Rob Havenstein, Bobby Evans, Joe Noteboom, Coleman Shelton, and Tremaine Ankrum. That leaves the cuts being Chandler Brewer, A.J. Jackson, Jeremiah Colon, and Jordan Meredith. I know we talked about Bobby Evans a little bit, but I don't think that he played poorly enough to get cut, especially ahead of Chandler Brewer, A.J. Jackson, Jeremiah Colon, and Jordan Meredith. I don't think that he fell below them based on what we saw against the Raiders. I do think that Whitworth, Edwards, Allen, Corbett, and Havenstein are your starters, and Bobby Evans, Noteboom, Shelton, and Ankrum will be backing it up. Shelton can back up interior in any spot, so he can be that backup center as well as guard. And then Ankrum, he can do kind of guard tackle. Bobby Evans, I think, should be playing more tackle than guard, but he can play either of those. And then Noteboom, we know, can be guard or tackle as well. So those are your 9 there. Let's flip into the defensive side here. I have the Rams keeping 7 defensive linemen. They do like to run a pretty heavy rotation there, so I did add a number there. I was going to keep with 6, but I did choose to stay with 7. There, your defensive linemen are Aaron Donald, Sebastian Joseph Day, Ashawn Robinson, Bobby Brown III, Ernest Brown IV, Eric Banks, and Greg Gaines. That leaves the cuts being Marquise Copeland, John Daka, Michael Hogt, and Jonah Williams. I do love the depth here, and unfortunately, the guys that I do have as cuts especially Daka Hoke and Williams. Nothing against Copeland, but I do think he is the weakest of that group. I do like those guys, and I would like to see them clear waivers and stick around, especially for some emergency depth if needed. But, you know, Sebastian Joseph Day and A'Shawn Robinson, they look to be starters. Bobby Brown and Ernest Brown are strong rookies that I think will continue to develop. And Greg Gaines, I was not a fan last year. I do think he's in a position to still make the team. And then Eric Banks, I think, is doing enough to make the team as well as a rotational backup. At the linebacker spot, we'll start at the outside linebacker. We'll go with Leonard Floyd, Justin Hollins, Chris Garrett, and Justin Lawler. That, if you guys are keeping track at home, leaves Terrell Lewis and Obaniah Okoronkwo as my two cuts. I don't think that their injury history has helped him here. I do think that Chris Garrett, his game against the Raiders, and Justin Lawler's game against the Chargers, I think helped them immensely. We know that Leonard Floyd is going to stick around, and it does seem like Justin Hollins will be the starter opposite of Floyd. So I do have Chris Garrett and Justin Lawler there as that rotational backup, although we could see some extra numbers there. Instead of just the 4 edge rushers that could be altered, of course, we could see Lewis and or Okoronkwo stick around. At inside linebacker, I have the Rams keeping Troy Reeder, Kenny Young, Traven Howard, and Ernest Jones. That leaves my cuts as Christian Roseboom and Micah Kaiser. Micah Kaiser is being selected as a cut for a couple of reasons, and one is because the lack of progression. And I know I've said that about Taylor Rapp as well, even though I do have the Rams keeping Rapp. It just seems like they're really high on him. But it seems like Micah Kaiser just is not doing necessarily enough, and that group is getting a little bit crowded. So Troy Reeder, we know from he's been here for a little bit. Kenny Young has improved immensely, especially over the last year. Traven Howard, who is actually playing some really good ball right now. He's rocking number 32, so it kind of tricks my brain a little bit. I always think like maybe he's a safety or something. Gotta remember that's Traven. But and then Ernest Jones, who I think could eventually become, maybe pretty soon, the green dot for the Rams. Maybe this year, maybe year 2 for him. But I do think that he will eventually become the green dot for the Rams. And you know what? Maybe that is enough to boot off Micah Kaiser, who was green dotting last year for the Rams. At cornerback, I have the Rams keeping 6, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, David Long Jr., Dante Dion, Robert Rochelle, and Bronte Harris. That leaves the cuts as Donovan Alumba, Tyler Hall, Kareem Orr, and J.R. Reed. Orr and Reed are two guys who can absolutely make this team. They're right in that line as well. But I think Bronte Harris is just playing a little bit better. I think Robert Rochelle, I think that his ceiling's just extremely high. I don't think that we'd move on from him. Dante Dion is a guy that could be one of those that gets cut. But, you know, his attitude in the locker room is, I think, such a positive experience that I think that is worth it to keep him around. I think that he brings energy, he brings excitement into a group like DBs, man. That's exactly what you need out of that grouping. So I like Dante Dion making this team. David Long Jr. feel good about, of course, Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey. They're locked in. They're not fighting for a roster spot there. We know that those guys are going to make the team. But Bronte Harris, I think, is doing enough to knock down guys like Kareem Orr and J.R. Reed. Kareem Orr, I was excited to see him come in and play. Has not played to the level that I thought he would, unfortunately. J.R. Reed is playing pretty well, but I don't think it's enough. I think that Bronte Harris is playing a little bit better. At the safety spot, I have the Rams keeping 5 here, and that would be Jordan Fuller, Terrell Burgess, Taylor Rapp, Nick Scott, and Juju Hughes. The reason that I have so many here selected is because there is some versatility going on here. So I know that Jake Jervis and Troy Warner, those are my 2 cuts at the safety spot. Jervis has been playing more of like a linebacker role, but that's something that we can get out of Taylor Rapp, and where I think that he actually excels. I think that's where he plays a little bit better. Nick Scott is progressing really nicely, and Juju Hughes has had a really strong preseason, so I don't think that there's any reason to necessarily move on from him. Terrell Burgess, I think he's already making the case to be a starter over Rapp. That's just myself. Maybe we'll see that again this year, where Rapp will take back, or Burgess will take over Rapp again, like we did see last year until Burgess got hurt, and then Rapp started getting those snaps again. But I do have 5 here. We can do a lot of things with the safety spot, especially with guys like Terrell Burgess and Taylor Rapp. And then Nick Scott, he can contribute really well on special teams. And Juju Hughes, man, like I said, I think he's just playing really well. At kicker spot, we don't have anybody to cut, so I do have just Matt Gay right now Although I'm not sure if he's going to make it through the season if he continues to look like he has. I know that the one against the Raiders was blocked, but missing some kicks. He missed the one, I believe, in the first preseason game, and then the other one was Austin McGinnis, who the Rams already cut. But you know what? This kicker spot might actually get changed around. I liked Matt Gay last year. He kind of ended a little bit rough, but he started rough and ended rough. But he had a nice little stretch there in the middle of his time last season with the Rams where he was looking really good. But the ends there were not necessarily the hottest. So I do think that it's possible. He could make it through the season, but I do think it's possible that we see him move there. At punter, I do have the Rams keeping Johnny Hecker with Corey Bojorquez being the cut. I do think that Bojorquez is a very strong punter, and Johnny Hecker is the highest paid punter in the NFL right now. And Bojorquez, I think he can get it done, but I don't know if he's doing enough to unseat Johnny Hecker. And also, you got to think it's got to be factored in as well that, the team has to know that if they move on from Hecker, there's going to be some unhappy fans, all right? And for me, myself, I always just want to see the 53 best make the squad. I don't care about the names. I love Johnny Hecker. I would hate to see him go. But hey, if Bojorquez can get it done, then let's go Bojorquez. You know what I mean? So, but I do have Bojorquez getting cut. Johnny Hecker, what the heck? Sticking around. And for long snapper, I did have Steven Wirtel listed as my cut with Matthew Orzech making the team. That is all but confirmed with Steven Wirtel being waived earlier today, which is Wednesday the 25th. So that is your 53-man roster right there. Let me know, guys. Please let me know. Do you think any of these are absolutely ridiculous? I do have a couple of big names here. Bryson Hopkins getting cut. I do have Micah Kaiser getting cut. Obadiah Okoronkwo, Terrell Lewis. Let's see. We've got, Jonah Williams, John Daka. Those are two guys. Jake Jervis playing that linebacker spot. Kareem Orr, J.R. Reed. These are my cuts, guys. But you know what? The best part about this team today, and one thing that I like about this team today is we are cutting good players. And as much as that sucks to see, there's a lot of players here that can be contributors. This beats the crap out of when we were, in the dark era and we were keeping players just because we needed a body there. We're cutting players now because our roster is so strong that we're going to cut good players. Back in 2008, 2009 times, we were keeping players who had no business being on an NFL roster, but we just needed somebody. We didn't have anybody else to play those roles, so we were keeping guys around who had no business in the NFL. We saw that a bunch actually after the turnover started happening. That we'd waive somebody and they never saw another NFL team. Now we're cutting guys and waiving guys who are very strong players and are probably going to get picked up other places. That is a good thing for us. All right. That means we can get the 53 best, and we're not just keeping guys around by default because they play a position that we need somebody at. So it's a very positive thing. I'm not against it at all. Rams fans, it means the absolute world to me that you made it all the way to the end of the video. I do sincerely appreciate it. If you guys have not already, make sure you guys subscribe. That'll be on this side here. If you guys liked this clip, I guarantee you're going to like the entire show. So check that out on this side. Thank you. Go Rams!